Roger that. Ready for push straight back. Release the brakes, please.
Brakes released. Brakes set.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Another exciting day for hardware review from Throttletek Hardware. Today we're taking a look at the flagship throttle from a 737. This particular model is the G-737 Max, and it is an absolute awesome piece of hardware. There's a lot of different features on this throttle, which I'm going to highlight some of my favorite features that I like, and we'll talk about some of the functionality in the simulator, and then of course I'll roll some footage of just messing around with the throttle a bit so you get a little bit better idea. I'm trying to get the dimensions for you here while I make this video, but apparently I left my ruler at home, so I will put the dimensions of this throttle in the description below because it is a rather tall piece of equipment. I want to make sure you have a proper mounting solution should you go ahead and purchase it. All right, let's take a closer look now to the 737 G Max throttle from Throttletek. Guys, this when I first put this throttle together and got it assembled, I got to tell you, when I put my hands on these thrust levers right out of the gate, the range of travel that you get with these thrust levers is like nothing I've felt on a desktop simulator. It's greater than the Bravo, it's greater than any TCA or any other hardware that I've used for thrust manipulation. So that is, I just wanted to say that right out of the gate before we even get started on this thing, because these throttle levers really change the game in your hand flying abilities to have that long real world travel, so you can really manipulate the thrust levers and get the speed and the energy state of the aircraft where you want it to be effortlessly. Now, these particular throttle levers that I have here have the Hall effect sensors, extremely buttery smooth and extremely precise all the way through the full range of travel on the throttle quadrant. Obviously, looking at the levers, you get the nice laser engraved 1 auto thrust disengage and 2 auto thrust disengage text on top of the thrust levers. You also have your disengage buttons on either side of the thrust levers as well. Just beneath the grips there on the top, you have 2 functioning toga buttons. You can come in there and you can bind those to the Toga detent or the Toga activate, whatever the binding may be. In Microsoft, it works flawlessly with the PMDG 737, and it's just, it really gets that, you know, instead of having to press a hidden click spot on the dash of the FCU up there on the 737, being able to just come down and press the Toga button and let those engines rip is really, really neat. Continuing now towards the base of the throttle, you can see that this particular throttle quadrant is modeled from the 737 Max. We have the new Max start switches down here at the base of the throttle quadrant. Really fun, really neat to do that. That's one of my favorite things to do in the sim, whether it's on the Throttletek flight box for the Airbus or on the 737 here with the Max throttle. It's really neat to go ahead and introduce fuel yourself, have those actual position switches. It's really neat. You can customize the PMDG 737 to have either the old levers or the new levers. Just a word of information there that these are not only on the 737 Maxes. In fact, Southwest, the largest 737 operator here, one of the largest 737 operators in the US, is their newest aircraft, their 800s and stuff that they're getting from Boeing, are all shipping from the factory with these new style start switches. If you think that's a game breaker to you, do not worry. Throttletek does have a 737 V2 throttle, which is basically the same setup as this, but it also has the old school fuel cutoff switches as well. So you can go ahead and get either one of those on the option that you pick. Right now I've got these version 2, or excuse me, the Max version throttles here, which I really like. And it actually makes it really nice when I want to fly the 757, because the 757 has a very, very similar start switch. So I'm going to be able to use these for most of my twin engine jet aircraft. In fact, I'll probably use it for all of my twin engine jet aircraft. Might even use it for the BAE 146. Who knows? I'll just be able to put 1 and 2 engines on this one and engines 3 and 4 on this one, because again, that range of travel is insane when you go ahead and push it. You really need to have some room in front of you. I don't even think I can get it in one frame here. You really need to mount this properly so you have some room in front of you. So when you do go all the way forward, I mean, you have it's a little bit of a distance. Looking again here towards the base of the throttle, you'll see we have a parking brake, a little metal handle there, fully simulated. It works flawlessly with the 737 in Microsoft and X-Plane as well. It's basically a switch on and off. So you got your parking brake there. Your speed brake detent is also a button, which you can feel here. It's got a nice audible click to it to arm the speed brakes in flight. Or if you want to extend them to full or their flight range, you have a full range of motion access there as well. You can see here in the 2 tracks of the thrust lever quadrants, there's this nice like a leather flap that's been laser cut right down the middle, and it keeps all the dust out of there, a little bit of a dust cover. Just makes it look really clean, really sharp. Continuing to look around the throttle quadrant here, we now get to the flap lever. This is probably one of my other favorite features of this throttle quadrant, is you actually have a proper flap lever that needs to be lifted up on and dropped into the selected flap position. You can see how the mechanism works here on this side, where it does require you to actually lift up and put it where it needs to be. Now, it does require a little bit of a force, so you want to make sure that you mount these throttle levers to your desk or to whatever mounting solution you end up with, because it's going to make this run so much smoother for you when you have a nice sturdy foundation. Right now I just have it sitting on the top of my desk, and it is a pretty hefty, it's a pretty hefty piece of equipment. You can see it even wobbles my desk a little bit here. So I have a separate mounting solution that I'm going to be using underneath my desk that's dedicated to this throttle. It makes it much more sturdy, and it makes the experience a little bit more enjoyable for you as well. At this angle, you can also see our reversers here. Just like in the real 737, these are pull to lift and activate the reverse. Now, in the PMDG on Microsoft, the way that they have it coded for that simulator is it works almost like a toggle, which these are essentially buttons as well. So it works pretty seamlessly. You just go ahead and flip it up, and you can trigger reverse on your engines 1 and 2. Now, in the PMDG specifically, they actually have it set up so once you trigger reverse, if you wanted to modulate that reverse, you could use forward thrust as your reverse. That's not necessarily true to real life, but that's just kind of a workaround in Microsoft Flight Simulator and how the PMDG 737 is bound. But again, you could bind these to activate your reversers, or you could bind them to activate full reverse, and you can just go all the way, let those engines rip into full reverse, because let's be realistic, on our simulators, who wants to use idle reverse anyway? So one other note here on the 7.3 throttle quadrant, you can see here it's a USB printer cable. I believe it's the B category. It's not a USB-C, so it's got the little square face, and you also have the back lighting option. Now I've got my lights on in full bright here, so it's kind of hard to see, but this is an option to have the backlit panel, which is really cool, especially if you're simming in a dark room. All of your flap track indicators will light up, your idle cutoff switches will light up, and the detent up and the arm detent will illuminate on the back side as well. So it's really neat to see that if you elect for that option as well. There's a bunch of other features. I'll link the description. I'll put a link in the description for you below. But again, the range of motion is the biggest selling point for me on these throttle levers. I mean, you can really manipulate that airplane and get it to where you want to be. Again, auto thrust disengage, toga buttons. It's got everything you need for a home desktop simulator. And again, it is a hefty piece of equipment, so do make sure that you get a proper mounting solution. All right, so getting ready to wrap this video up here as we look at some footage of me using it in the sim. My final thoughts on this hardware from Throttletek. I absolutely love it. And the number one question that's probably going to come right out of the gate is the throttle motorized? The real 737 has a motorized auto thrust system. This throttle is not. You would be hard pressed to find a motorized throttle quadrant for anything less than about $3,000. So it is not exactly like a real 737 throttle quadrant where it has an automated thrust motor inside of it there, and you can override the thrust levers, linking of the parking brake to the rudder pedals in the aircraft, and of the mechanical linkage of thrust reverser and spoiler arming. So you're missing some of those features from the internals, but again, you would be hard pressed to find any throttle on the market that has that type of feature list for less than about $3,000. In my opinion, Throttletek does a great job of bridging the gap between entry-level hardware, such as our big brand name stuff, and then going into full cockpit building mode, where you're actually building real parts of a cockpit essentially for your home cockpit. So they've really done a good job at bridging the gap, and this throttle comes in at $650 US. And if you love to fly Boeings, if you love to fly twin engine jets, I do not think you would be unhappy with this purchase. Again, I would suggest that you properly mount it, get a nice mounting solution for this throttle. I don't have a permanent one yet. I'm still kind of tried to see how I want to do it permanently, but I think it is very well designed and it's very well manufactured for the price point, and there's really nothing else like this on the market for this price point. So I think Roberto over at Throttletek's done a fantastic job. If you have more questions, such as you want to have Hall effect sensors in yours, or you want the backlit panel, a couple different options, make sure you send him an email. I will put his email in the description below. Of course, you can go to the website directly and email him from there. Current lead times as of making this video, I believe Roberto said that they are looking at about January ship dates if you were to order today. So I could only imagine that's going to go ahead and increase as time goes on and more people see the video and the word gets out about this stuff. Kind of did the same thing with the Airbus throttle or Airbus thrust lever quadrant that you'll see on my channel as well, the Flightbox Mini and the Flightbox V3. So if this is something that you are really serious about, don't hesitate to get on the order list, because it will probably take some time between ordering and receiving your piece of equipment. That's going to do it all for this video. Guys, I can't thank you enough for watching, tuning in. I hope you enjoy this content. You will be seeing this throttle on my channel here for the foreseeable future. Again, huge shout out over to Roberto at Throttletek. Can't thank you enough. If you're wondering about key bindings, I will be doing a separate binding video, hopefully release it within the next couple of days, showing you what I do to get my 737 bound up to match exactly like you see on my videos and how it should be in relation to the real aircraft. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy. I'm V1. See ya!